Good morning, Facebook family and friends. Thank you so much for joining this morning. This is Saturday morning with Dr. Mama Rosie Thompson, and today is October the 26th, 2024. And we're talking about living with integrity today. So we'll still be coming whole and authentic, but today we're going to talk about living with integrity. And we're going to cover two topics. We're going to talk about accepting accountability and taking ownership for our lives. So I really thank God for each of you who joined this morning. Thank you for taking time out of your day. Those of you who will be watching with me now as I go live, those of you who will watch this video later, and those of you who will watch it on YouTube. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and be with us. I wanted to share with you that next Saturday I will open the phone lines. Next Saturday, we're going to open the phone line. And the reason we're opening the phone line next Saturday, because we're going to talk about this documentary that you can see on Netflix. And it's called Sweet Bobby, My Catfish Nightmare. It's a documentary. And it's about this young lady who was a catfish for multiple years by someone that she knew. That she thought she didn't know who was cat. She thought it was one. You know how catfishing goes, but someone she knew, and multiple years. And so we're going to look at the reasons, potential reasons, why, she went through what she went through for that long. Why the person who catfished her would do it for that long. We're going to look into the background, talk about some of the potential reasons based on her culture, based on what could have been said or done to have her to go through this for this long and not to. Not see the red flags. We can't say that she ignored them, because trauma is really trauma is just something that it's not so clear cut. If it was so clear cut, people wouldn't have as much issues with trauma and wouldn't deal with trauma for so long in life. But because trauma is amazing, and it's really easy to say that I wouldn't have done that and I wouldn't do that. But the truth is, until you're in that situation, until trauma affects you, you really don't know what you would do. I was sharing with a person, I think it was yesterday, and we were talking about the time my uncle stuck me up, and I went to his house. Some of you may already know it, but I went to his house one Saturday morning to pick him up because we was gonna go to that concert. He used to come over and spend the night, and we go and do different things together. So I wanted him to go to this concert. There was this band I really liked, and I wanted him to go with me. So I went out and pick him up. And I had never gone in his house, and I knew he lived with a lady, and I talked to her on the phone, but she never met me. So I didn't want her to feel that. I wanted her to know I was actually his niece, and that she could feel comfortable with him going to my house. Anyway, and when he said to come in and meet her, because I'd never met her, and as I got ready to walk in the door, he came outside the door, and I noticed it now. I don't know if I paid attention when it happened, but he comes outside the door and he walks in the door behind me. And when I walked across the threshold in his living room into the front foyer, he put an ice pick to my throat. And I thank God he put the ice pick to my throat, and I was talking to him like, Uncle, you don't have to do that. I was telling my sister I was on my way over here to get you. We're going to go to the bank. I'm going to get you money for what you needed. And so I was able to talk to him enough to calm him down enough until I got him and put him in the car with me. And I drove from the south side all the way to Uptown on the north side. And when I got to Uptown, he stayed in the car. Because when we were at his house, he had thrown the ice pick over in the corner behind some boxes, but I didn't know he still had a knife. So we got to the bank. He stayed in the car. I got out of the car by myself. I went into the bank all alone. He was in the car. And I got money, and went back to the car where he was and gave him the money. Hindsight would say to me, you were in the bank, there was security in the bank, they would have protected you, you could have asked somebody for help. But when that situation happened, I did not think of that at all. So I'm mindful now to say what somebody should have done or how I would have done. I'm very mindful of that now. Trauma is amazing. You never know how it's going to affect you. You never going to know if you're going to freeze. So I totally froze. I didn't think at all until later. I didn't even have a panic attack until after, when I got back to the car, I gave him the money. And I still tried to get him to go to my house and spend the night. I guess I was so afraid in that frozen state. I was like, can we forget about all of this? You can still go. We can go to the concert. He said no. So he left. When I got to my house and locked my door inside my house, I had a panic attack where I could not breathe at all. So trauma is something that it's amazing, and it's kind of sad sometimes when we things that we haven't gone through, we think we know how somebody else should go through it. So that was I wanted to share that. So we're going to talk about that next Saturday. The name of the documentary, if you'd like to watch it before Saturday, because we would like to have questions, we would like to talk about this openly and together. It's called Sweet Bobby, My Catfish Nightmare, and it's on Netflix. And it's a documentary. You know, it's not a series. It's just a documentary. So watch it if you get a chance. And I open the lines on. I open the phone line on Saturday. You can call in and we can talk about this together. And if you watch it and have any comments or things you want to share beforehand, please do so. You can do that here on Facebook, or you can text me if you have my number. Thank you so much. Again, this is Saturday Morning with Dr. Mama Rosie Thompson, and today is October 26th. We're talking about accepting accountability, and we're talking about taking ownership of our lives. That's some of the things we want to do. As we last week we talked about a couple of weeks ago. I missed you all last week. We talked about helping others, and when we do that, we really have to be really, really mindful of how we help others. We want to be support to them, but we don't want to be enablers for anybody. So today we're going to start a new topic, as you know. And we stressed last week, the last time we spoke, we stressed the importance of making sure that we are bonding with people over trauma and not trauma bonding in our efforts to help them. We don't want a trauma bond. Trauma bonding is horrible. We want to bond with the person over the trauma that we've experienced, but we don't want a trauma bond because that is horrible. We also gave an example last week about the impact of trauma in relationships. When I have unmanaged trauma triggers in my life and then I get with someone who has unmanaged trauma triggers in their life, it can be detrimental. And I gave an example, and I'll give it again. And we talked about a person who maybe been raised in a household where there was limited income. And people who are raised in households where there's limited income, they can suffer from a lot of different things. Excuse me, I've been drinking tea and everything, but I'm still coughing. They can suffer from increased anxiety, depression. They can have low self-esteem. They can have a feeling of helplessness, difficulty regulating their own emotions. They can struggle with trust, with impaired cognitive, development, and they can have a heightened sense of stress just because they were born and raised in this home where there was limited income. And it often stems from the consistent worry about basic needs not being met and the stress of navigating, in a challenging environment. So let's say that this person grew up in this house and they had, where there was limited income, and this person, we all have these trauma triggers, whatever our our response rather to trauma could be. So maybe this person's trauma response was to fight. So they decide in their mind, I'm never going to, when I get to be an adult, I'm not going to have this in my life. We're going to have what we need. I'm never going to live like this. I'm not going to live where we don't have resources. We can't go on vacation. We can't have money that we need. We can't buy the things we need. Because remember now, as a child being raised in a home with limited resources, that child is also looking at other children who have things that this child can't have. This child's parents can't afford to buy him. So let's say this child grows up to be a man, and the trauma response that he has is to fight. So in his efforts to fight living in a home with limited income, this person becomes a workaholic. He does everything he needs to do to make sure that he's providing for himself. He's buying the things now that he was not able to have as a kid. You know how we with those things that we've always wanted and couldn't have, and then we get to be an adult and we're going to make sure we get those things. So let's say this young man grows up that way. And then he gets married. He married this woman, and he saw his mom working all the time, and so he decides in his mind, my wife doesn't have to work. My wife doesn't have to work, and I'm going to buy her everything she needs. She can go on vacation. She can hang out with her girlfriend. She can wear the best. She can, the house she chooses, the house that they want to live in, and the car she wants to drive, and all the material things that people, find to be important. So he gets married to this lady. Now let's say that this same lady who he marries grows up in a house where her parents would abuse drugs. And as we know, if a child grows up in a house where there's parental or drug abuse, they suffer from a variety of emotions too. They got their own emotional things going on in them. So they can these kids can feel neglected. They actually 3 times more likely to feel neglect. More than three. They can feel neglected 4 times higher. Their neglect feeling is 4 times higher than than the other kids who they know who are not living in that type of household. And they're 3 times more likely to experience some type of abuse, like physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse. So these people coming into this relationship, he's coming in from his rearing as a kid. She's coming in from her, rearing as a kid, and they're both coming into this relationship with their own mind. So let's say that her trauma response too is to fight. So she's fighting all of this stuff that she saw in her childhood. She's going to make sure that this is not in her childhood. So what does she do? What does she, in her mind, she pictures this life, and in both of their minds, they picture this life and this family that they're going to have that's so much different from from what they grew up doing. Okay, so they're in this relationship. He's out there working all the time because he want to make sure that he provides for his family. She's enjoying the things that he's doing, but she also has some trauma responses and things in her life that's affecting her. So when he goes out and work all the time and he's gone all the time because of whatever he's doing, she still feels neglected. That same trauma that she had as a kid, that feeling of neglect, that trauma that came up on her as a kid of neglect, he out working, and you would think he's doing a good thing trying to provide for his family, but he still is not giving her what she needs. She needs to feel that he's there. She needs to feel that he's around. She needs to be able to deal with this feeling of neglect that she's getting from her husband. It's that same feeling she had from her parents as a kid. So what I'm trying to say is, when we have trauma in our lives, and as you know, trauma is anything that makes us feel overwhelmed, that makes us feel out of control. We want to pay attention to those things. We want to make sure that we are dealing with those triggers. When those things come about, we want to make sure that we are paying attention. And as we also talked about helping, as we help other people, we want to practice self-care. We want to make time to care for ourselves. We can't get overloaded with everybody else's problem where it becomes a problem of ours. It can't become our problem. We can't get so overloaded with everybody else's issues and concerns until we take that stuff on, because it's like I said, I think I said last time, it's like a weight. Trauma and things in people's lives is kind of like a weight, and they come and put that weight on you. Another weight that we want to be mindful of is when you meet people and people are not happy, when they don't have a full life of their own. It's not a good thing to come into a relationship and you're not okay and whole and complete by yourself. When you come into relationships, friendships, or whatever, you're coming in to enhance each other. You're not coming in for this person to make you anything. Because if you come into it expecting that other person to make you something, you don't know what that person has already in their life. And that's really unfair for them to, like, people talk about, I want you to make me happy. No, you make yourself happy. You make yourself happy. Now, we can do things together. We can laugh together. We can have fun together. There may be some things that give you some joy, but you got to do it yourself. You got to look out for ourselves. So that's why we're going to talk about the topics that we're talking about today. Another thing that we talked about, helping other people, make sure consider therapy. And as you began to talk in relationships or whatever, it's a good idea. We gave it an emotional scale. It's a good idea to have an emotional scale, because when we get ready to talk about things that are affecting us and things with our spouses, our mates, our friends, we may want to ask them, how was your day and how are you feeling? How you, on a scale of 1 to 10 or 0 to 10, how are you feeling? If they come from work or they come from hanging out or whatever they just did, and they come in and they say, well, you need to talk to them about something. You don't want to only have the scale when you have something important to talk about. But if you did it on a kind of a daily basis, how your stress, baby? How you feeling? Scale of 0 to 5 or 0 to 10. And if they come in, they had a bad day, that gives them the opportunity to say, I'm on a 7. It was a horrible day. That gives them that opportunity. And it also gives you that opportunity to take that break and take a step back and know that this is not the time to bring up issues. This is not the time to bring up things of importance, because they already got a lot of things on their mind. So think about that too in your relationship. How are you doing? What are your stress levels? 0 to 10. And if it's a 5 or anything above that, take a break. Take a break. You can wait. If there's an issue, in most of the time, it can wait. Don't push people. Okay, so today we're going to talk about, as I said, we're going to talk about accepting responsibility. And that's not a hard thing to do, to accept the fact that, this is my responsibility, to know that, rather. When we're living with integrity, it means being true to our values and acting in a way that is consistent and honest. We want to be consistent in what we do. We want to be honest in what we do. It means that we do the right thing even when no one is watching. That's what it is. That's what we're living in integrity. I do the right thing whether you're around me, whether you're not. It's just who I am. I'm whole. I'm complete. So I walk in integrity. In order to live a complete and whole life, we sometimes have to take that hard look into the things that we allow in our lives and the things that we accept. We do accept. We need to take that hard look. When we talk about accepting accountability, it means acknowledging the responsibility for our actions and their consequences. And we're going to talk about taking ownership, and that is that when we take ownership of our life, it goes further than just accepting accountability. It goes further by actively managing and making decisions about our life, demonstrating a proactive approach to shape our own outcome, not just accepting responsibility for what happened to us, but it's the difference between simply admitting fault or admitting that I played a part in this and actively taking control to improve the situation. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. We're going to go further than just accepting it, acknowledging it, but we're going to change our life. Anything in our life that we're not liking. Now, I can go back to that situation with my uncle, and I can't go back and change that situation. I can't go back and say, I couldn't go back and make him not try to, stick me up. I couldn't do that. But what I can do, I manage my own emotion. I manage my own self. I'm responsible for now. After I'm out of that. He's away from me. I'm not around him. What am I going to do about it? Maybe I'm going to sit there and blame myself. Well, if he hadn't gone to his house, that never would have happened. No, I'm not going to do that. We're going to always be empathetic with ourselves. We're always going to love on ourselves. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with going to my uncle's house. What he did was wrong. I forgive him, but what he did was wrong. It doesn't take away the fact that he was wrong in what he did. But now I control my emotions. Now, since my emotions, they belong to me, but they're not me. They're not me. I can decide to hate him. I can decide to love him. I can decide, okay, I love my uncle, but now I know that I can't trust him to do things. I don't know how far he'll go. I don't even know what caused him to do it. And as I understand trauma more, I'm a little bit more empathetic to other people when they do things, because it's something in what happened in his life that made him feel that was the route that he needed to take. So I think like that. Now, I asked a lot of questions about things, not just assuming that everybody is the worst person the worst person in the world. And I totally believe that no person is the sum total of the worst thing that they've done. I don't believe that. I think there's so much more in people. They may have done something really, really bad, but that's not the sum total of who that person is. If we don't understand why people do what they do and pay attention, first of all, if we don't understand ourselves and acknowledge our own trauma and our own trauma triggers, we will never be able to look at other people differently. We'll say, we think that why they doing that and they silly for doing that. We don't do that. We don't call people stupid. We make foolish mistakes. We do foolish things. We're not fools. People are not fools. They're not stupid. They do things sometimes, but you don't know why. You don't know what's in their life. You don't know why. You wouldn't have known why that young man was out all the time working, why he think he needed so much. Why wasn't having a nice car enough for him? Why did it have to be a Benz? Why did they have to have this? We can do that, or we can really look at ourselves through the lens of our own life, and it makes us look at things differently. Yeah. So there's there was a Facebook motivational speaker. It's called Morty Quotes, and I'm going to use this for accepting accountability. And it says on the Facebook quote, it says, it's always easy to blame other people. You can spend your whole life blaming the world, but it won't change anything. I can spend my whole life blaming what happened in my childhood for me being the way that I am today, but it was not going to change anything. I can't go back and change my childhood. I can take control of my life today. He said, we must realize that your life is solely your responsibility, and you have within yourself the power to make it work. Take ownership. That's why, as long as I keep looking to you. Okay, about the abuse in my life. As long as I go back and keep looking at, if my dad had not raped me, if he had not done this, then he has the power. So if I need him to stop doing something in order for me to be okay, then he has the power, and I can't make him stop. I can't make you stop. If you say to ourselves, like, man, every time I look around, they always calling me for money. I'm tired of them calling me for money. I wish they would just stop calling me. So you've given them power over your life. If they don't stop calling you, you need them to stop, but you can't make them stop. But what you can do is change the way you look at that and say, instead of, why don't they stop calling me, say to yourself, why am I allowing them to do this? Take the responsibility of your own life. Why am I allowing this? I can't stop you. I won't try and stop you, but I will change the circumstances in what I do. And then that's how we take back the power. Okay, he said, when you blame others for your problems, you will never find solutions for them. They put me through this. They doing this. No, they not putting you through anything. You're going through this maybe because you love them. Whatever the reason, they are not putting you through. When we say other people are putting us through, that's giving them the power. No, they're not putting me anywhere. I'm doing this because, and when we realize why we're allowing things in our life, then we can look at some solutions and how we can change it. Even if the answer say you'll never find a solution, even if the solution is right before your eyes, you won't see it because you're focused on who to blame, not on finding a way out. It's so easy and it's so nice to blame everybody else for all the things that's happening around us and happening to us, rather. But we have to look, when we take ownership of it, we can then get out of it. He said, when you accept responsibility for your life and your actions, you're taking charge and you're making things happen rather than waiting for someone else to do it for you. No matter how bad you're feeling right now or how terrible the situation is that you're in, the easiest thing to do is to blame somebody else for it. The hardest thing to do is to take responsibility. But when you take that responsibility, it will change everything. It gives you the new perspective and strength to create the life that you want, the life that you need, and the life that you deserve. It said, in the end, whether you win or lose, succeed or even if you fail, the truth remains the same. You have only yourself to blame. We can give it to somebody else. We can look at why everybody else, and we can look at ourselves. We choose to be whole and authentic. And in being whole, we take ownership of ourselves. We take accountability for what happens in our lives. We don't blame anybody else. Man, they got me. No, they don't got me. They never got me. Man, they doing this. If we stop looking at everybody, looking at the mirror of our own life, it will change a lot of things in our life. If we keep blaming somebody or something else, we will never learn, we will never grow, and we will never become that person that we are destined to be. So we must realize that our lives will only change to the degree that we accept responsibility for it. Our life is simply as good as we choose to allow it to be. Fix the problem, not the blame. We want to fix that issue, not the blame. We're not trying to fix the blame. If I can find out where to pinpoint the blame, that's not important. What's important is there's a problem here. Oftentimes, like I say, I mentor and I talk to a lot of people. So sometimes I talk to people and they want to tell me they want to spend the time telling me about what's so bad. Okay, and what they've done and how this person is doing and how this person is treating them. Okay, keep giving them. You're giving them power now. Let's talk about the issue itself. How does it affect you? This is where the issue is. The issue is really not what they're doing, because if you left them, they could still be doing it and it wouldn't be hurting you. So what's the problem? The problem is, how does this affect me? You're coming to me all the time. I have a problem saying no every time you come in, you want money, and I'm just passing out like I got a tree out in my yard, and I'm just giving money. Not why they keep coming to me, but how's this affecting me? Well, I noticed that my tree is not growing any more money. So what am I going to do? I'm going to say no. I'm going to learn to say no. I'm going to learn to do the hard thing. And that's not easy. When I come here, I'm not here to tell anybody that one size fit all. I'm not here to tell anybody that, you can do this. You do what you're able to do. Once for a long time in my life, I was not able to say no. I did not know how to say no. And that's another reason why I share my life with you. Because I want you to know that you're not alone. When you have a problem saying no, you're not alone. Sometimes we go all around that no, trying to find an answer instead of just saying no. Let that person, I remember there was a man named Donald Williams. And he used to make deliveries to the store where I live. And I was talking to this man one day, and it was somebody coming to me, and I was saying they could do this, and he said, Rosie, just like they found you, if you say no, they can find their next person. You don't have to find the next person. You don't have to find their solution. You just tell them what you can do. They didn't ask you to help them find that next person they could go to. They came to you and asked you, could you do it? And if you can't, for whatever reason that is, just say no. That was hard for me. But it's the best thing. Once you learn to do it, it's the best thing to do. So we don't fix the blame, we fix the problem. We blame us, So the quote on Facebook says this. It says, never blame others for your problems. You are responsible for your own life. No one else is, and no one else will ever be. Okay, we have one comment. Thank you. We do have some views. We do have one comment. Hey, Jay, thank you for watching. Thanks, Goo. He said that is true. Thank you, Goo. Thank you. Appreciate you. Then we're going to talk about taking ownership of our lives. So taking complete ownership of life means controlling what we can control. So when we take ownership, we can't control everything, but we can control what we can control. And being fully accountable or responsible for the choices that we make and the actions that we take. When we're taking ownership of our lives, it means building a solid character and living with integrity even when it's inconvenient. It seems so, I don't know if inconvenient is the right word, but it doesn't feel good to say no when you're not used to saying no. It doesn't feel good to have to stand up for yourself, especially the first time that you learn to stand up for yourself. It doesn't feel good. And when I first started trying to learn to stand up for myself and take ownership for my own life, it would come out like I didn't like the way it came out because I didn't know how to come to somebody in a loving, kind way and say, no, this is not what I'm going to have in my life. I would come in with this, let my emotions have to drive me. You're not going to do that to me. You're not going to say that to me. Instead of saying, I don't like what you're saying. This is how it makes me feel. And I'm asking you not to do that again. That you remember we talked about an ask, that's an ask. When you ask somebody to do something, they can say yes or no. It's up to them. We don't control the outcome. We say, I don't like this bothers me. And if they really want to be with you, if they really want that relationship with you, they'll listen to you. If they don't, if they choose not to, you can set a boundary. You continue to do this. I've told you before that this bothers me, that I don't like this. If you continue to do it, then I'm going to set a reasonable consequence. In my case, my reasonable consequence may be that I won't be able to talk to you anymore. That we won't be able to go do this anymore. And then it's up to you. Now you've taken ownership of it. And now if they continue to do that thing that you've asked them not to do, and you have a boundary in place, and you have communicated your boundary, don't assume people know your boundary. You remember, boundaries are those invisible lines that we draw for ourselves. People don't know where to cross in your line unless you tell them. We can say, and it's a cop out to say, oh, they know. No, they don't. You've been doing it all along. How would they know? Oh, they know. How would they know? You've been doing it all along. You may feel that they should know that that's not a nice thing to do, or that's not a fair thing to do, but you've been allowing it all along. So why now you feel like they should know that they shouldn't do that to you? Why not? They've been doing it all along. You were laughing when they did it. You didn't like it, but you laughed. You smiled like it was okay. So if you did that all along, now you're upset because they're not respecting that invisible line that you have never even communicated. So when you draw your boundary line, your line is for yourself, and it's invisible to other people. So that means you need to communicate it. Communicate what you don't like. As with everything else that we have done, let me say that the concept is simple to understand, but it can be challenging when it comes to practicing. When it comes to taking ownership, the concept is really simple. When it's easy to say this is how to do it. That's why when we talk about that movie next week, Sweet Goodbye, we want you to watch it with an open mind. It's easy to say, but putting things in practice, especially things that you have not been used to doing, it's not that easy. We oftentimes we avoid ownership because it's scary. It's scary to assume full responsibility for anything. If you fully responsible for anything, that's scary. Let alone our lives. You fully responsible for your own life. You don't know what can happen, what other people are doing, but you're still. It's hard to do that, and it can be kind of scary. We have been conditioned to shift blame and to make excuses when things don't work out the way we want. We've been conditioned to do that. Little kids do it. That wasn't me. Little kids do it. We raise them up doing it. That it's not you, they jealous. It's not you, they're hating on you. It's not you, they don't like what you got. It's not you, because you're prettier than them. It's not you, it's them. It's always them. But when we take back that ownership, it gives us power. That's what it does. It empowers us. Taking complete ownership comes with a weight that can be kind of hard to carry. And we oftentimes rely on excuses because when we don't have the option of excuses, the consequences can be uncomfortable and hard to avoid. The consequences, when we don't take ownership, the consequences can be uncomfortable and they can be hard to avoid. It's a fact that so much of life are outside of our control. It's overwhelming enough. A lot of things in life are already outside of our control. So that's overwhelming enough. So, and this can make ownership efforts feel useless or pointless. Well, I can't control that in a way. You can't control that, but you can control you. You can control what you do. You can control how you respond. You can control how you react. No, we can't control them. And that's what we do so often. I talk to people, like I say, all the time, and I hear that so much about what they doing and why they did this and why didn't they do this, if they would only stop doing this. We cannot stop them, but what am I going to do about it to make my life whole and complete? What am I going to do so that I can live in integrity? That's what we work on ourselves. This is why ownership is rare. Most people don't take ownership of their life, but it is the utmost important in our efforts to become whole and authentic. Whenever you're seeking to be whole and authentic, you need to start to take ownership of yourself. First, acknowledge it and take ownership of it. Make those changes that need to be made. Good morning, Joyce. Good to see you this morning. Such a blessing to see you. And good morning, Dinetta. Thank you so much for joining this morning. Yeah, so we have to take ownership. We need to take ownership of our own life. Life is finite. The reason why it is so important to do this, because your life is finite. And your time is the most valuable access that you got. You're going to live whatever long you live, and you're going to leave here. You don't get a do-over. You're not going to get a do-over here to go back and buy that house again, and not buy the house again, to buy those shoes again. You're not going to get that do-over. Your time is your most valuable asset. You're not going to get that time back that you wasted, that time back that you spent blaming other people for your life not being what you want. You're not going to get that time back. Living in an unauthentic life spent blaming people and circumstances for our dissatisfaction is the biggest waste of time and the biggest waste of life that ever existed. Spending our time blaming other people for our circumstances, or for us to be dissatisfied in anything, is the biggest waste of time in our life that ever existed. We don't want to spend time waiting for other people to make adjustments in order for our lives to get better. Other people may never make adjustments. People will promise you they're going to do something. How many times have you met somebody, they told you, oh, I'm not going to do that again, they do it again? How many times have you said that this bothers me, and they kind of seem like they actually ignore it? How many times? Yeah, it gets to be a place. You remember we talked a while back about why we allow a lot of things in our life, because we don't want to be by ourselves, and it gets to be when you become whole and authentic, you may end up losing friends. You may end up, because the world is changing. You're changing. You're growing, but you're growing for the better. You're getting better. So sometimes, yeah, people will leave. People will walk out of our lives. And it's not, it doesn't feel good, but we got to be okay with that. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to lose a friend. That friend that you've had for years, but they know that person that you weren't whole, you weren't authentic, you wasn't saying what you needed in your life. That's why it's really important to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth. We want to do it out of love. We want to be empathetic, but we want to tell the truth. No, I don't like that. And we got to know for ourselves, this affects me. We don't want to just walk out of people's life because something didn't affect us. We never gave them a chance to do it. Now, we want to give them a chance, because sometimes if people really care, they will try and hear. They will pay attention. You saying to them, I don't like that. And they don't tell you why you should. That's a big one for me. If I say that I don't like something, don't you tell me why I should. You like what you like. I like what I like. I'm going to respect the fact that you drink coffee. Please respect the fact that I drink tea. That's it. We're different. We're different. We're both whole. We're both wonderful. Just because we don't do the same thing, that doesn't mean we're not wonderful. We're authentic. We're great people. God made us that way. We're great no matter what. We're great. The good in us is great. The bad in us is great. The ugly in us is great. The whole of who we are is awesome. You're awesome just the way you are. You're now working to become better and to be real in yourself. That's all. You're now working to be whole and authentic. You're now working to live in integrity. You're now looking at what you really want. Sometimes people don't even know what they really want. You ask them, how many times have I gone to eat or said something, and somebody asks me what I want? I tell them, I don't know, whatever you want. I don't want whatever you want. You may like something I never had. But I was saying that. I said it for years. Now, I don't know what I want yet. That's okay. But I don't have to say I like what you like, because I may not. Now we're learning ourselves, we're getting to know ourselves, and we're getting to be better people. So we don't want to wait. We don't want to spend time waiting for somebody else to make an adjustment so that we can be better. We don't want to do that. They may never make an adjustment. Without complete ownership, we fall short of being the person that we're meant to be. When we don't take ownership of our lives, when we don't take ownership and decide this is my life, we can be together, but it's still my life. Pat and Danetta. Pat is my biological sister. She knows I love her dearly. We talk almost every day. But that's you're my sister, but this is my life. I get to choose. Your life is your life. You get to choose what you like. You get to choose what you want in your life. So we end up chasing paths that will never lead us toward our full potential. And sometimes we even chase paths that lead us away from our purpose. When we're not taking ownership of our life, we get on these paths that's taking us somewhere away from what we want in our lives. We're still doing it until we learn to take ownership and to say something and do something about things in our lives. We're on a path that's taking us away from where we want. When we can acknowledge well-founded ownership is an unpleasant situation. We can acknowledge that it's not always pleasant. When you start to take ownership, it's not always pleasant. But but we're better prepared to make the necessary changes to resolve things, even if it starts with me. So when I get ready to take full ownership of my life and things, it's not the most pleasant thing sometimes. But I'm better prepared, because now I'm the one making the decision to get things done. I'm the one deciding. So now it makes it necessary. It comes even better for me to make the decisions that I need to make, because now they start with me. They don't start with waiting for somebody else to do anything. They start with me. If we are unable to own our own stuff, we will remain victims of the circumstances of our circumstance. You heard that? You're a victim of your circumstance. That's because when we don't own our own stuff. We don't own the fact. I was talking to this young man. He's in jail, and he was telling me that his family act like he's not in there. And I asked him, what do you want them to do? He's like, well, at least a letter. So I could get a letter. I said, have you written anybody? Well, I don't. And then he said, I can't call nobody because I don't have their numbers. I said, well, then before you got in there, did you have their number? You got to take ownership for what you've done. You need to take ownership for yourself, because if you do that, if you don't, when you come out, I think he said he's coming out in a couple of months. When you come out, you're going to be still a victim of your circumstances. You still expecting everybody else to make your life okay. What did you do? How did you get in there? What did your family do to put you in there? This is your turn. This is your life. You got to take ownership. You're the one in prison. So now, because you're there, you want everybody else, because he want them to send him some money. He want them to do this. He wants somebody to say he can live with them when he get out. It may not work that way. We have to take our own ownership. And as long as you keep looking in the past about what they did to you and how they did to you, you will never get to be where you want to go. So what when you were out before that young lady lied on you, the reason you end up in jail? Okay. You can't unlie. You done spent the whole time in there. Now you're going to keep talking about her, that you would never do that to her, or you're going to make some plans on what you're going to do when you come out. Where you going to live when you come out? Do you plan to get a job? What are your plans? Don't spend your time. You've been in there all this time, spending your time thinking about what somebody else should do for you. Think about what you're going to do for yourself. So finally, at the end yesterday, conversation with him, he did have a different situation set up for where he's going to live. I'm like, good for you. Good for you. And that's what we have to do for ourselves. When we make a decision, even if it's a hard one, to make our life better, good for us. We have to give ourselves credit. We got to give yourself credit for what you do for yourself. Be your best cheerleader. Jump for yourself. Don't wait for everybody else to jump for you. You don't, even if they don't worry about them. You do it for yourself. Give yourself, and once you become this way. So the way, rather, to help us to become whole, and another way to help us to take full ownership, it leads to independent thinking. We give ourselves permission to question what doesn't feel good, despite what the person involved or the masses may think. What doesn't feel good, despite what you feel? I'm empathetic towards you, but what doesn't feel good to me? Ask questions in order to seek understanding of yourself and situation. Why am I allowing this in my life? And be real with yourself. Nobody's going to know if you don't tell them. Be real with yourself. Why am I still dealing with this? Why? Why am I still in this situation? Why am I allowing them to do this to me? Why am I allowing this to happen? Look at it and be real. I allowed things in my life, as you know, some of you know, I allowed things in my life because of the childhood trauma that I went through and didn't know how to get out of it. I was stuck in those trauma triggers and dealing with them. I wasn't dealing with them. They were just coming up on me, and I was fighting them the only way I knew how. Ask yourself, why am I allowing this? And so I allowed a lot of things in my life that I didn't like in my life because I didn't know how. But as we learn and we grow, see, when you got a desire to do something differently, then it gives it pushes you to actually make a step. So make the choice that's true to you. Even if it faces some type of external pressure, make the choice that's true to you, even if it faces pressure from somebody else. I moved over here when I sold my house, and not my house anymore, when I sold the house, and moved over here. And my people were saying to me, at my age, maybe maybe you shouldn't be moving at your age. Why not? But even with the pressure from outside saying what I should not do, I make the choice that's true to me. You may not understand why I would leave 4-bedroom and come to 1. I do. I wanted to. And even from pressure on the outside, we still have to make those choices that are best for us. And we want to get to a point where you're able to acknowledge and accept the choices that you make. So we even make mistakes. The only person in the world who will not make a mistake is the person who's not doing anything. As long as you do things, you're going to one day make a mistake. Get to that point where you are able to acknowledge and accept this is the choice I made. The action that I've taken. This is the result that it led to. Okay, whoopie-doo. This is what I did. I shouldn't have done that. That was silly. Wish I had not done that. Wish I had not started back taking those phone calls. So what? You did it. Acknowledge it. Stop beating ourselves down because we did something that wasn't the best thing to do. Own the role you played, even if the situation didn't turn out the way you expected it to. We're not going to keep going, but just a little bit more. And it's also very important to be able to have the ability to identify, to use, to understand, and to manage your emotions in positive ways. So, manage your emotion. We talked about that. Manage your emotions. We're not going to get all bent out of shape, as James would say, because we made a mistake in what we did. No, we're not. We're going to take a look at that. We're going to acknowledge that thing. We're going to be empathetic with ourselves. We're going to have mercy on ourselves, and then we're going to make a change. When you're capable of recognizing your own emotional states and those of others, you can use this understanding to relate better to other people and form healthier relationships. I'm so sorry. Yeah, once you start to learn how to recognize your own emotional state and you begin to pay attention to other people, it helps you to have a better relationship. Our emotions are very valuable to us, so don't dismiss them. Once you can identify the emotion and the message that it comes with it, the last step is then to take action. Pay attention to yourself. We always talk about that. And then the last one, we got our frame of reference. Our frame of reference speaks to patterns. We talked about that of assumptions. When we look at things through a frame, and then we change the way the frame is, or we reframe it, we can see it differently. So we want to continue to do that. Our frame of reference speaks to the pattern of assumption, or the ways of thinking or feeling about something or something. So look at it, we're looking at it through this lens. We're sometimes looking at it through the lens of what we want. We're looking at it through the lens of if they would only change this, we're doing that. Understanding your frame of reference is a practical approach to removing those mental barriers. So when you understand that frame of reference, it helps you to remove the barriers that's preventing you from doing other things. Because your frame of reference directly impacts your thought. So if you're looking at me through this lens that Rosie is, whatever you want to say about Rosie, and if you're looking at me through this one lens, then it's gonna affect what you think about me. But if you open up, if you change, if you reframe that and put a little understanding of where Rosie comes from, what Rosie has gone through, what Rosie's desires of, then you think differently about me. So your frame of reference is influenced by your childhood experiences, by your beliefs, and these are your shadow beliefs too. These are the beliefs that you don't even realize affect your actions. We have shadow beliefs that we don't even realize they're affecting us, but they are there. Our cultural values, our traumatic experiences. So we have to examine our frame of reference around our relationship, and then we have to determine whether our outlook is either hurting us by keeping us stuck or motivating us to make a change. And this goes back to when we talked about reframing, changing the interpretation or changing your point of view. Ownership would help us to grow by giving us a choice to take action. It all starts by accepting your current self completely, your flaws and all. Just one more time. Ownership helps us to grow by giving us a choice to take action. It starts by accepting your current self completely, flaws and all. Accepting these shortcomings doesn't mean you resign to them. That doesn't mean you give in to them. Shaking hands with your weakness gives you the opportunity to improve. That's what it does. You're not resigning to them because you accept that you have shortcomings. You're not saying that this is a shortcoming. Now it gives me an opportunity. But when you realize, acknowledge it, it gives you an opportunity to improve it. Ownership fosters, and it helps to foster authenticity. It builds productive awareness, and it reinforces our trust in relationship. When we're trying to have relationship and we have ownerships, it helps us to reinforce that. A couple of things we can do, and then I'm just going to go kind of quickly over there. Sit down with your shortcomings. Pointing the finger to blame turns you into a bystander in your own life. This is my life. If I'm blaming somebody else, then I'm just a bystander in my own life. And it forfeits your role in this situation and leaves me at a place I'm just indifferent. I'm just here because they ruling everything. No, you're not. No, other people are not. The path to ownership does the opposite. The path to ownership gives you the control. It's difficult. Taking ownership forces you to acknowledge your influences. When things go wrong, it forces you to look at yourself. Even though your role changes, it's always there. Your role is. Get clear on who the person is that you want to become. Think about what makes you feel most alive. Think about that. Understand what's in your control. What's your efforts? What's your attitude? And what's not in your control. Look at what's in what can I do? What do I have the power to do? Okay, I can't do that. What can I do? Stop blaming people and circumstances. Don't talk about problems without focusing on a solution. Whenever you have an issue or a problem, when people come to you with problems, don't fix it. When people come to you with problems, ask them, say, what are you thinking about doing? And why are you doing it? Make them think about it. Make them talk it through. Don't give them answers, because the answer is going to be your answer. Let them come up with their own answer. Help them to a place where they can find their own answers. And be accountable for everything within your control. I think that's the last one we're going to say today. Be accountable for everything that's within your control. So again, we want to thank all of you. We're going to stop here. We'll talk about maybe some more of this next week, but we're going to stop here because of the time. We want to thank all of you for taking the time to come and be with us today. Really, really appreciate you. We're going to do our affirmations, but I do want to say this one more time. Next Saturday, we will have the phone line opens because we would like for people to call in. And we're going to be talking about this movie called Sweet Bobby. Sweet Bobby, my catfish nightmare. And it's about this young lady who was catfished for multiple years by someone. And we're going to look at it from the point of trauma to talk about why it could have potentially been the reason why she allowed this to go on, why she didn't see the red flags. We're going to talk about her childhood, her upbringing, what her parents said, what her family was saying, all of this stuff, and how this could have been trauma, and how it could have led her to go through this for all this time. Because somebody would say, why would you go through that for all that time? Then you don't understand trauma. When you can look at somebody and say, why are they doing that? That doesn't make sense. Then you don't understand trauma. Trauma is real. Trauma affects everybody. We all have trauma in our lives. We all deal with trauma triggers. Some trauma triggers we deal with one way. Sometimes we don't even know that these triggers are still affecting us because they come sometime in ways that we don't see. And then sometimes there's trauma in our life. And remember this, trauma only surfaces when there's room for it. So as long as you got all this stuff around you going on and there's no space for the trauma to come out, it'll be hidden in you. That's what we talked about, those fragmented parts. So we don't want to get too much more, but we talk about fragmented. And trauma will be hidden until there's a space. When I got to a space where, okay, my kids got a place to live. We have a home. I'm not living in the car anymore. We got a home now. And I got a job. And it was the best job. I'm making good money. And that's when my trauma surfaced. So we'll talk some more next week. So we're going to do our affirmation, our affirmations for today. And you can repeat after me, please. I accept myself for who I am. I deserve love and respect. I am proud of myself. I will continue to strive and do well. I am worthy and I am whole. I am accountable for my life. I take full ownership of my life. I am always a safe place for myself. Thank you so much again. I want to thank all of you who joined today. Really appreciate you. We'll see you again Saturday at 8 a.m. where we'll be talking about Sweet Bobby. Thank you so much for joining. You all have a very blessed day, very blessed weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Goodbye.